Hey everyone, welcome to the Canine Culture Podcast, where we talk about everything dog. Q&As with veterinarian professionals, rescue operators, everyday topics. We cover everything dog on this podcast. So make sure you subscribe to the Canine Culture Podcast on your favorite podcast platform, and make sure you're following us on social media on both Instagram and Facebook. Thanks again for listening. Now here's that next episode. Welcome everyone to episode 18 of the Canine Culture Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about dog training, and we have a special guest on. So guest, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Whitney Duncan, and I own Sit Play Stay LLC.
And tell us a little bit about your business.
I'm a positive reinforcement trainer that got certified in 2007. So we work on puppy manners, behavioral modification, a lot of shy dogs. I work with a lot of shelter dogs. I worked at the Humane Society in the behavior department for many years, and I was a vet tech before that.
So you mentioned positive reinforcement or changing behaviors. So what would you say that the principles that guide you for training, or like what theories do you follow? Are those the only ones, or are there more?
Well, patience is a big one. Just to have patience with any dog, even the puppies that you're training. And then consistency. Just making sure whatever you decide how to tackle a behavior modification or even a training cue, you just want to be consistent on how you choose to do that so you don't confuse the dog. And then always set your dog up to succeed. You always want to end on a good note, even if you can tell they're getting over it. You want to just take it easy and change it to something you know they'll do, and then go back and try to work on it later. And then desensitization. So we'll work on that a lot, especially with shy dogs, getting them used to things. Puppies, starting as soon as the vet says that they are old enough to go out and enjoy the world with vaccines on board. We'll start desensitizing them to everything as far as like leash manners, meet and greets other people and dogs, things like that. And then we do a lot of counter conditioning, putting a positive association with something that is fearful or could cause anxiety for a dog. A lot of shelter dogs I work with have those issues just because 9 times out of 10, they were brought into a shelter from a home that they had never left before. It's not that they were necessarily abused, they just never left that home. So it's a very big shock for them to come out into a different world like that.
So you kind of mentioned the puppies, and in an ideal world, what age would an owner start training a puppy? And of course, that means they're vaccinated, or maybe even, would you start pre-vaccination, or would you wait for all of that?
Definitely as soon as you get the puppy. So a lot of breeders are letting them take them home at 8 weeks. So I would definitely start training at 8 weeks. So that way you can nip any bad behaviors in the butt as soon as they happen. If you wait until they're 5, 6, 7 months old to start training, then they could have already had bad habits started. And then you have to retrain them another direction. So starting just by putting your rules, boundaries, crate training, if that's your thing, it's a great tool to have. And then just all your basic obedience cues around the house. And then once the vet says they can go out, then you can start practicing all the other stuff. But you will have a very good foundation starting that early.
Yeah. So we actually work with Whitney for training, and starting Tighten It training at the age of 12 is difficult. Starting Napoleon at 2.5 is difficult. And Stoney doesn't participate. She's 13, so we do not train her. But she's also almost deaf and almost blind, so that plays into training, which that kind of leads me to a quick question on, do you ever work with any like blind dogs or deaf dogs?
I have before. We've gotten them in at the shelter. When I was in high school, I volunteered at a shelter in Orlando, and that was when 101 Dalmatians was very popular. So at one point, we had 12 Dalmatians in the shelter.
Oh, wow.
Because people got them because of the movie, and then half of them were deaf. So we worked on that and then getting them adopted or going into a breed-specific rescue.
Okay. I didn't even think about that. But yeah, I feel like that's a common thing whenever movies come out. People buy it because it's cute, and then they're like, oh, never mind. This is not at all what the movie looked like.
Definitely.
So if you had to choose the top 3 issues with dogs that can be alleviated with training, what would those be?
Number 1, definitely leash manners. A lot of people don't take that into consideration, especially as a puppy, because, they'll pull, jump, but they're very small usually. Even large breed puppies are very cute when they do it. So once they get full size, you're like, oh, now I have a problem.
Right.
So leash manners would definitely be at the top. A good recall, coming when called. A lot of people don't think about that because they'll just let their dog out in the backyard. And they're like, oh, he doesn't come to me. That's okay. It's fenced in. But then if he ever got loose, that's a big problem. And then greeting company. That is probably one of the big ones as well. Dogs just get overexcited. So especially when you have a multi-dog home, they just get super excited to see people and they're jumping and barking and things like that. And a lot of people just want to get down and talk to them and give them that attention because that's what they want. And that's usually not the right thing to do right off the bat. You have to wait till they calm down a bit. So it takes some work for that.
Guys, she's talking about me on all three. My dogs don't have leash manners because it's like, oh, it's a cute small dog. They're fine. And then greeting people. If you've been to my house, you know that my dogs are nuts. So we're working on it. And then recall. My dogs have zero recall. Complete zero recall.
It's all right. We're working on all of it.
So any tips for owners who have a very limited budget and they still want to do some type of training with their dog?
Yeah, YouTube is a huge resource. There's so many videos that you can find on YouTube, and there's so many positive reinforcement videos out there. A lot of trainers are putting their information out there just for anybody to use, which is a great resource.
And what should owners be doing on their own for training or just generally helping their dog be a good boy? I mean, I've actually heard dog training referred to as people training, which is part of what we do. So what would you suggest for owners to kind of just do on their own day to day for both themselves and like for the dog?
Yeah. So exercise is key. That's one of most behavior problems do come from lack of exercise. Just letting them out in the backyard, running around on their own is not sufficient enough. Like you need to have structured walks. You need to have enrichment, things for them to do that stimulate their mind as well as their body. Because you can exercise them and take them for a 10-mile run, but if you're not exercising that brain of theirs, they're going to get into trouble once they recoup from being ran for that long. And then just being consistent. So whatever rules and boundaries that you decide to do in your home and making sure everybody is on the same page for the most part when working with the dog so they don't get confused about things. That's one of the big ones too. And then socializing them. Like if you have a puppy that's very friendly, socialize them, take them everywhere, make it a positive experience. If you have a shy dog that you may have adopted from a shelter or just has a shy personality, still take them out, but go places that are more outdoors or that you have an exit. So you want them to go at their pace and make sure they're comfortable and still responding to you. They may not necessarily take treats or anything, but you can at least get them out socializing at their pace.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned enrichment, and I feel like a lot of people are throwing this term around, especially like on social media and all the trainers that are posting. So what is enrichment exactly?
Enrichment is just extra your dog's brain through activities, whether it be challenging or fun. Going on a walk in a different direction, that's enrichment. They're going to be smelling things that they hadn't smelled before, especially if you go on the same trip every single time. Brain puzzles, there's food puzzles, treat dispensing toys, and a lot of stuff you can make at your home too. And you can do scent games where you can hide treats or hide toys and have them go find them. And just changing it up too. Even your dog's toys, just rotate them. So you're not constantly buying new toys. You can take them up every few days and give them a different one.
All right. So you kind of did just go through the list of things that are enrichment. What are some of the top things? So for us, you suggested the mat.
Snuffle mat?
Yes, the snuffle mat. And Sony won't do it, of course, because she could care less about anything. But the boys do it. And then I don't know what my other puzzles are called, but aside from those, the puzzle and the snuffle mat, any other like really good things that you think people could buy or make on their own?
Oh yeah, licky mats are really good. You can use it. A lot of people are using those little silicone popper things and turning those into licky mats for dogs. They actually have some that suction cup on the floor too. My dogs personally don't care for them, but my older Australian Shepherd I had, she loved that. You could use like 1/2-gallon milk jugs or 2-liter bottles, cut some holes in them, put some treats in it, and they have to roll that around or move it around to get the treats out. There's that. You can do like if you have a old sock, put a tennis ball in it. that's a great toy, and that way it gives them enough length of it to grab it, and they'll like fling it in the air and stuff like that. Tether tug, flirt poles, kind of like a giant cat wand.
Okay.
Dogs love to chase those, especially the ones that have a more of a prey drive. So that way you can use that, and then you can incorporate your basic obedience cues, and then that can be the reward to chase the flirt pole.
Okay. So tell everyone where they can find you on social media.
I have a Facebook and Instagram, both under Sit Play Stay. And then my website is sitplaystaypets.com.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being a guest today on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to the Canine Culture Podcast. Please make sure you subscribe to the Canine Culture Podcast on your favorite podcast platform, and make sure you're following us on social media. If you have any recommendations, any topics that you'd like to hear, if you know of any guests that would be good for the show, or if you yourself want to be a guest, please reach out to us. Send us an email at canineculturepodcast@gmail.com, or send us a direct message on social media. Thank you for listening, and please share this with any of your dog-loving friends.